Hello out there in YouTube land.
Welcome back to our channel.
Today we thought we'd hedge into a subject that is, well, not near and dear to our hearts, but we've had a good amount of experience with, and that is the current trend of entitlement.
We've had a lot of experiences with this, and it's shocking.
And it seems to be getting more and more prominent.
It's more prominent, it's more... I wonder sometimes where the rudeness comes from, or why the need for it.
And it seems to be a American problem, I would say, to a large extent.
To a large extent, yeah.
And it's funny. In our experiences, it's not just male or female sexes that have this sense of entitlement. It seems to be a trend throughout our country. And it's disturbing to me because, I mean, the idea is that we're all the same and we all should be treated equally.
Right.
But when you have someone who suddenly thinks that the world owes them everything and that everything should revolve around them, you have problems.
You have problems, and it's in every single job setting.
Yes.
It's in just walking down the street. It's very... You run into more rude people than you run into people that are kind.
And, you know, I've gone to the grocery store, and I'm sure you all have too, where someone will suddenly, like, just barge their way past you because you weren't moving fast enough, or they couldn't pause for 2 seconds while you grabbed a thing of deodorant off the shelf.
And the one thing that I've noticed too is a lot of the self-checkout lines at grocery stores, people will just start loading their stuff regardless of the fact you're still trying to get yours bagged. And then I've even been yelled at for it, actually. Yeah. It's shocking when that happens.
Honestly, I'll do the probably childish thing and go as slow as possible when someone does that.
Yeah, I do that too.
But, you know, you're limited as to what you can do when someone decides to behave like an absolute idiot.
Right. And it's more and more, I guess, I don't know if it's accepted these days or if it's just expected.
I'm not sure about that. It seems to me like there's a lot of people that don't have self-reflection. And they don't see what they themselves are doing, and yet they'll do the very things that they complain about.
Right. That's a rampant, it's almost a plague at this point. Practice what you preach is not something that I've noticed a lot of people doing, and it's really rather sad.
It is. So you're going to talk about a specific event in your life that you experienced an issue with entitlement.
And I don't know if it's a specific, but it's kind of an overall, it's kind of a blanket. I've taught in a lot of different settings. I teach now, I help train lab personnel that come into our setting and, work with them on how to do their procedures and the protocols. I've also taught at the university level, and something that has always stuck out to me is when I find that somebody has a complaint, they blame it on me. And my favorite line is, "Why are you failing me?" And I don't know how many students I've turned around and looked at and said, "I'm not failing you. You're failing you because you didn't do the work assigned. It's not on me to do your paper for you." But there's no ownership of that mistake. There's no, "Oh, I'm sorry, yes, this is my fault, and I will fix it, and I will grow as a human being." It's blame the instructor, blame the teacher, blame the person that's in charge. If you don't make that extra step, if you don't do what is required of you, and you learn how to be that kind of person, how do you expect to succeed?
And you have to work with other people in order to be successful.
Right.
And I think a lot of people forget that.
A lot of people forget that, and a lot of people assume that, well, I am pre-med.
Mm.
And that's been an argument too. Well, I'm pre-med and my dad is a medical doctor. Well, your dad is not taking my class. He took his classes. He got his MD and he went through all his board certifications. You are not your dad. Or your mom. Or anybody else that you want to drag into the argument. You are you. You have to own what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And that comes with saying the lines, yes, I made a mistake. Or I screwed up. I completely own my mistakes.
I do too. And, I'll be totally honest that I make a mistake at least on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Things happen. You're human. No one's perfect.
But accept that you're not perfect.
Yeah.
And don't blame it on somebody else.
Exactly.
Don't put it on someone else's shoulders that you are failing, because that brings into light that you have very little self-respect and very little honor for yourself. Be mature about your mistakes. Own up to it. If you didn't do the assignment, own that.
Yeah.
If you didn't do a step in a protocol, own that. Because don't defend it at the end of, well, it was this or this or this, and it wasn't my fault. I don't know how many times I've messed up an experiment right in the middle of it. And it's frustrating.
Sure.
Nowadays, I laugh at myself.
Well, and I think that's another thing that people have forgotten too, is that it's good to laugh at yourself. When you've done something that is completely ridiculous, it's funny.
It's funny, and you learn from it.
Yeah. Because you remember it.
Yeah. I remember more of my screw-ups and what I learned from those screw-ups than, most of anything else.
Yeah. And that's part of what growing up is supposed to be.
Exactly. It's learning. You never stop learning and you never stop growing. So that was kind of, what I was thinking of in terms of where I've seen a lot of entitlement. And you have an example too.
Yeah, mine's a little different, but again, it deals with my job. I am a writer, an author. And one entitled thing that I've noticed is that, in a regular working situation, you get your paycheck and you go home. As an author, I get royalty statements, and I get those royalties every quarter. In a normal working situation, you don't go up to your coworker and say, hey, how much did you get on your paycheck this week? I've had numerous people want to know down to the cents how much I made on my books.
That's incredibly rude.
And it's an entitlement, in my opinion, because it's expecting me to give in to whatever weird curiosity there is when it's something that's no one's business but between me and my publisher.
Exactly. And that's not even in an interview setting. You can't even ask that.
No. So I don't know why people see being an author different than working in a regular job. It's a job. We're all working jobs. They're just in different areas.
I think I'd be taken aback if somebody came up and said, well, as a scientist, how much do you make? It's none of your business.
Yeah, I mean,
flat out
come
none
on.
of your business.
And it's been older people, younger people, male, female, intersex, from all different walks of life. And I've just been completely flabbergasted because I personally never would ask someone how much they made.
No.
And another variance of that is I've actually been asked, was your book a bestseller yet? Are you rich? That's also really, really rude.
That would be like asking me if I've won the Nobel Prize yet.
Yeah.
The answer's no.
One day, maybe.
Maybe.
You know.
We won't assume.
It's a strive for thing.
It is.
Certainly. But it's a very odd place to be in a job where other people don't view it as work. And I think that's the problem. People don't view writing as work, so they take extra liberties, and which gets into the entitlement. They feel entitled to treat you different because they don't believe being a writer is a job.
Right. And that's, if it's somebody's profession, you should always assume that it's their job.
Yeah.
It's not any different than somebody who is making jewelry and making a living off of it. You wouldn't ask them how much they make, and that's a very rude question.
Yeah.
To come up with, and that would almost take me aback.
It did me. The first time it was absolute shock.
Mm-hmm.
The second time was annoyance, because this was someone that knew better. I can understand it if it's someone that is totally clueless, who, maybe has some sort of mental issue or something like that. That's a little different. Or if a kid asks, you understand that because they don't know the social graces.
Exactly.
But when it's someone that worked in an industry for years, who is of normal intelligence, and they ask you a question like that, come on.
I guess where I would think, or where my next thought would go, is what gives you the right?
Yeah.
And if you have that response to something, and that person is pressing the matter, that is an extreme sense of entitlement to know exactly about your life.
Yeah, and I've had people say, "Oh no, really? How much did you make?" And I just stare at them like, seriously?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can come up with numerous examples of entitlement. I'm sure that there are numerous examples that you out there can give.
Right.
Unfortunately, it is literally an epidemic in America. And, unless people start talking about it, it's just going to get worse.
It is going to get worse. And it's going to... There is a fine line between what is truly offensive and what is offensive.
Because there's a lot of people that will say they're offended by a stupid meme. And what I mean by that is something like, okay, in the goth community, there's a lot of memes out there. And I remember one about, like, a rainbow goth isn't a real goth. And people come up with these giant, huge arguments to be offended about such a thing. And come on. That's a major amount of entitlement, because there are people that experience all different types of horrible discrimination.
Right.
And for you to choose something as meaningless as is a rainbow goth, a real goth, to be up in arms about, come on.
If you say you're goth, you're goth. I mean, to me.
Yeah. I mean, most people do not say that they're goth unless they listen to at least one goth band, or they like horror films as well as style, and so on and so forth. If you consider yourself goth, you're fine in our book.
Yeah.
We're not going to judge you for anything beyond, the fact that, well, if you have body odor, we'll probably be like, take a bath. But beyond that... Because I don't think anyone wants to smell someone that hasn't taken a bath in, like, 8 weeks or something.
Yeah.
But, beyond that, I mean, come on. We're all, especially goths, we're all in this together. We're the outsiders anyway. Don't come up with reasons to...
kick somebody out of the fringe.
Yeah.
That's not an accepting thing. That's not being human.
No, it's not. And we should all strive to be truly human.
Yes.
Well, that's all we have for you today. We hope you're having a wonderful time, whatever it is you're doing. If you're not, then we hope things get better.
And if you would like to see more of us, please subscribe and make sure you ring the bell.
Till next time.
Bye.